To the CJ Hiller podcast presented by True Health Company. This is episode number 4, discussing exercise and training. Again, we're just happy to get on here to spend time talking about things that we enjoy to try to make the world a little bit more informed about healthcare, self-care, and the best version of ourselves. Our goal with this podcast is 3 things. First, spend quality time, meaningful conversation. 2, share our stories of living a lifestyle that prioritizes health while still chasing goals in everyday life. And then 3, share our unique perspective of having careers across the spectrum of healthcare, how that impacts the way we view health and life overall. If you like our conversations and learn from them, please share the episode, like the video below, and subscribe to our channel. 1, 2, 3. Boom. First question, we kind of just gonna bounce back and forth with each other here is what we're doing with training right now, or what does training, not maybe necessarily what we are doing with training, but what does training look like? We're both out of sports. We no longer are in sports, so there's different ways to view training. So I will ask you first, Cole, what does training look like for you right now?
Is honestly be as healthy as possible right now. Last time we were talking about banging out the ankle a little bit, still down and out there with the foot. So it's just getting back into it, and staying consistent. One of the hardest things for training is when life happens. And I say that all the time, about 10 times a day, is hey, life happens. How are we going to adjust and how are we going to move on from that? So training for me right now is like, what's the healthiest version of myself? Am I training for a marathon? No. Am I training for a competition of some kind competitively right now? No, but that's because I can't. So just modifying those goals, adjusting those goals, and making it so that I'm training for something, and then setting the bar a little bit higher to chase that. So it sucks. I'm trying to be on here and be positive and spin it because I would much rather be training for something and really pushing myself. But when I can't, still just want to show that it's possible. You can do it. It's not the best, but you got to make it work and do it anyway. So just keep working right now, and then get back into maybe some of the fun stuff that you're into. So what's the fun training look like right now for you guys?
Yes. So we'll be down in your part of the country October 15th. We're training for the Des Moines half. And in order, why are we doing it? Dakota ran the half for Grandma's, Duluth, and then I caught the running bug and wanted to do something because it had been 2 years since we did the marathon. And so we found something that was relatively close and just happened to know people down in Des Moines area, so that makes it worthwhile. So training wise, 6 days a week, so 1 rest day, 5 days of running, 1 cross training day, and 1 rest day, and then the cross training day using as a lifting day. And those lifting days hitting one of the big 3, so squat, bench, or deadlift, and then a bunch of accessory to help with injury prevention in regards to running. So I'm able to not burn myself out and spend 2 hours in the gym on a strength day, have a 60-minute limit. Been valuing my time a lot lately with this and everything else going on in our lives, so I want to spend time with Dakota and the dog. So that's what training looks like right now. And we do have a Spartan race in the back of our minds for November.
That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah. It's much shorter. than a half marathon. But we also wanted to go somewhere south later in the year. So two things to look forward to. So not so much CrossFit going on, but lots of running and trying to manage the load on the legs with that.
Gotcha. Nice. And so, just for everybody out there, for HILLER, we kind of have to go on this timeline of mileage so that people understand how backwards you do things. So, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, we
2 years
did you guys did the full marathon, 26.2, followed by a few weeks ago doing his first 5K event, 3.2 miles. And then now in the training process of hitting that middle ground, 13.1 miles. So
don't try to make sense of it. I'm a type of person that you don't always have motivation, but if you stay disciplined, and in regards to training, if you stay disciplined, I'm pretty good at staying disciplined, but I'm not always motivated. But when I have both of them, I I have a lot of confidence that nothing's going to get in my way of getting it done, and so I had a lot of motivation 2 years ago to do 26.2, and I wanted to use that motivation to accomplish that goal, and that's why it doesn't make sense and why I'm starting with the big 26.2 and then going to 5K, and then in our training we do a 10K race and a 15K, and then we'll do 13.1. My legs feel great because we go slow so much more often in this training than we did on our marathon training. We have a lot more easy runs sprinkled in. So,
and what do you think that like slow pace does for you? Right? Like you're still getting the mileage, I mean, you're obviously seeing the benefits of that. So why, that person that's out there that's like, well, I'm going to go run a 5K and I'm going to run a mile at my 5K pace. I'm going to run 5K at my 5K pace. I'm going to run 5 miles at my 5K. Like what do you see as a benefit in feeling good by like emphasizing like we are running slower and that's different for you?
well, I'm very blessed and I have a personal coach that lives with me that has a lot of running experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, eh, yeah. So you got to make it simple. So you look at your training plan. You have hard days like today. We went fast, and then tomorrow it's only 3 miles, but I'm gonna run that at 9 to 9:30 pace. The body keeps count, so you got to sprinkle in the easy days, but you're still getting the mileage. So your legs are still feeling the accumulation of all the miles. You're
Mm-hmm.
just giving them those breaks in there. Going slower allows your heart rate to stay down so that you can stay in an aerobic phase, building that up while not trashing your legs going fast all the time. And that accumulates over weeks and weeks, and typical training plans for halves and fulls about 12 weeks. So
Right.
you have a lot of time for that to build up.
That's cool. That's cool. And I think emphasizing the simplicity of it, right? Like when it comes to training, like what is simple, what is possible, what is doable, what is repeatable, what can you do consistently? All of that comes down to is your plan simple enough that, yeah, you can do it when you're motivated, like you said earlier, but are you looking at the big picture? Are you creeping towards your goal while taking care of your body versus, oh, I'm going to hit hard for 7 days and then 6 days in, you're like, no, I'm gonna change course. That wasn't simple enough. That wasn't sustainable enough, you know? And so I think that's super important when it comes to training and what you can do to stick with it is think about like if I do this today, can I do this 12 weeks from now? And like the nice part for you is you do have that accountability and you do have that program, but that 12 weeks is telling you what to do and how to do it. And so many people blindly follow how they feel, guilty also, but if you go based on how you feel, you're never gonna, make progress because if you always go by how you feel, you're never gonna put the work in.
And
So,
having a training partner in that regard helps a lot.
yeah, for sure.
They're not necessarily always going to feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
So at least having someone to do that with you, to either they bring down to your level how you're feeling that day, or you just both go at different levels,
Mm-hmm.
or different paces or different weights if you're working out. I do want to say that the way I approached my running, I don't recommend doing that. I don't recommend training for a full, then coming back down and then going back up. I don't recommend that. If you are just starting to get into running, start with 1 mile. And then if you feel good to go into the next day, just add a half mile. So do 1.5 the next time you run and slowly build up the volume for your legs. And you don't have to go fast. You just got to start moving. And if running is scary to you, start walking, start rucking, carry a 25-pound plate in a backpack or a 10-pound plate in a backpack, and just go walking. Therefore, you increase your heart rate because now you're carrying with load instead of just walking with your body weight. So there's other starting points to do that are less intimidating than those big mileage events that are out there.
For sure. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And it's funny because, like, you throw out, like, the next week, just add a half a mile, or, like, in your training program, right? Like, there's some short runs, mixed runs, fast, slow during the week. And those are probably doable. And for somebody that's looking like, oh, am I going to sign up for my first run or race? And then you're like, oh my gosh, half a mile I have to add every week. And you're like, well, that's, 3 miles over the course of 6 weeks. The funny part that I started with is like when you are running and you get into endurance running, like that's kind of how you look at the runs regardless, right? Like if it's a
Mm-hmm.
3 mile run, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go a mile and a half, and then I'm gonna make it to 2, and then 2.5, and then even when you're running 9, 10, you still get to that 6 miles and you're like, all right, 6.5, 7. And so mentally, you don't look at the whole run anyway. When
Yeah.
you look at like sitting here talking about it, you're like, oh, I have to run 6 miles this week and then 7 the next and then 8 the next. That's way too fast. But when you're out doing it, whether you're running 3 or 7, you're still breaking it up
Mm-hmm.
so much anyway that I think that makes a huge difference for people. Like once you're doing the work, you break up the work, right? And so that consistency, that starting point is literally the starting point to then move forward an inch. And if you can move forward an inch, I think there's two things you need. You need it to be simple so that you can measure the progress, and you need accountability, right? And that's kind of what you were talking about earlier. You guys have a training program, you have a training partner. So even when you feel like staying at home sitting on the couch, you know, your partner's like, no, we got to go do this, and vice versa, right? Like you're motivated the next day, and so it definitely balances each other out. And I know I experienced that too. Like I'm more consistent because I don't go based on how I feel. I go based on what the program says and what's simple and who I'm accountable to. So I think that's huge for somebody trying to get started,
Mhm.
but then taking that out into a week or a month, like what should that look like? What does training look like for someone that says like I'm trying to be healthy. I'm trying to learn about this. Like I'm listening to this right now, trying to take away what I can. I'm hopping on True Health 101 and asking those questions, right? And like just like I don't say it for the class, but for like that type of person. That type of person is like I'm right on the edge of being healthy. How do I do it? You know, what does training look like for someone that's trying to put the effort in?
And for them, for those who are just starting, a little bit of like self-reflection of like where you are at currently. So I say that because if you're not exercising at all and then you're going out and you're running 3 miles, that might be that might be too much to start. Maybe just assess where you're at. So am I doing any exercise? Am I walking? Am I on my feet a lot at work? What does my work life look like? Do I wake up, go to work, and I'm sitting at a desk all day, and then I come home and I make dinner, I eat, and then I'm sitting watching 2 to 3 hours of Netflix? Or what does your typical day look like? So for the average American, I'm I'm thinking that's kind of what it looks like. I'm I'm not, and I'm interested in what you have to say, Cole, and what you think the current activity level is for an American right now. But what I'm thinking is there's not a lot of not only fitness and exercising, but just on your feet, gardening, doing things around the house, like active lifestyle type activities. Because we can all exercise for an hour a day and then go sit on the couch the rest of the day or sit behind a desk the rest of the day. Um, so my rambling comes to an end. What do you think is the current level of a typical American?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, activity. So we Googled something here. Watch out. So trust it with a grain of salt. But um, right here, average American more than 5 hours of leisure time a day. Screen time 3 hours. Exercise time 20 minutes. I'm rounding. So if that gives you an idea on like where our starting point is and like a little self reflection,
Yeah,
that's a good one. I mean, type into Google what's the average screen time per day. Honestly, when I did it, it popped up at 7 hours. So I'm being generous here and going off of these numbers, which looks like it was dated back a few years ago. But average screen time 3 hours, average exercise time 20 minutes. And so, you talk about a starting point. Maybe it's not what you do exercise wise. Maybe it's what you don't do. And I didn't really see this going this direction and not necessarily telling people what to do, but more like how am I going to build time into exercise if I do need to do this every day, if I do need to make this a part of my daily habits. It's like, okay, well, where do you want to spend your time? Exercise. And what can we back off a little bit? Screen time. And I'm right there too. So I'm just saying, you got to figure out how to prioritize. But aside from that little tangent, what should a week of training look like for someone trying to be healthy? Like, I think if you go to this big picture of like, I'm going to work through my week, I think we need 2 days of strength training, 2 days of aerobic training, and then 1 to 2 days of active recovery, or one of those might be a rest day, you know? And the strength is super important. The number one most important thing that you can do. And we can talk about that a little bit more. But then the aerobic activity is a lot of what Hiller's been talking about is, are you getting your heart rate up? Are you getting the blood pumping to your legs? Are you putting some miles in? Are you getting your steps in? And if you're doing that, great. Your heart's going to be a lot happier for it, you know? And then that active recovery is quality time outside. Like, that's what I say. Like, go for a walk, with the family, play catch, play fetch with the dog, whatever that activity you want to be. I more gear active recovery as like, it's movement, but it's more lifestyle, right? It's going to the farmer's market. And then a day of rest. It can be Sunday, it can be whatever day you want, but a rest day, right? And having a rest day is super important too, because we got to adjust and give our bodies time to heal up. Yeah. Um, but that's kind of how I like the average week. But you can break it up however you want there too.
And I think I'm going to go on a very small tangent and make sure I time myself here, but I think we get into a place where we start training and then we start telling ourselves that we deserve certain things. And for me, this is just for me, not for everybody else, but I think that when we use the word deserve, that we're saying that we're entitled to something. And I like to more say the word that you have to go out and earn it. And one of my favorite athletes, but had one of the best mindsets of all time, would be Kobe Bryant. And he would always talk about how you would have to earn everything that you did. And so that's my small little tangent. So rest days are important, right? So we're starting training, but let's say we train for a couple days, and then you're saying, well, I've trained for a couple days. I deserve X. Maybe just reframe our mind and be like, well, maybe not deserve it, but maybe I've earned X. I earned this. I used to be sitting on the couch every day. Now I'm walking 10,000 steps every day, and I've earned X. Because you got to have goals and you got to have things to go for, things to keep you motivated. So, you get these checkpoints done, and then you've earned something. So, whatever that thing is for you, for our listeners, what they're finding, but that's just my one little thing about the world we live in deserving things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it makes a huge difference when you flip that outlook. Like, the amount of years that I worked out because I ate bad, or the amount of times that, I worked out, and then because of that, then I could go do, XYZ. And by flipping that and being like, no, I'm gonna eat good because I take care of myself. I'm gonna exercise because I take care of myself. And then it's the opposite. Like, you're sitting there at night watching TV and you're like, man, I gotta take care of myself. I deserve to
Mm-hmm.
um be healthy and feel good. And then that momentum starts to catch, and you can't really see doing it any other way. Like, the hardest part is finding that person or that group that's going to be accountable to you and help you change, um, but yeah, going right along with that, like, I couldn't agree more. Like, flipping that mindset to the positive is exercise rather than the negative, or the what do you call it, like the discipline is exercise, right? Like, it's like the punishment, there we go, the punishment is exercise. Like, instead, the reward is exercise. And Yeah, that's just too important to package and explain, really. But that's what we're trying to do here, and really lay out the foundation and the work that needs to be done, right? Like you'll figure all that out once you're doing the work. It's just a matter of, okay, here's the roadmap to start that.
What do you think is out there right now? We can end on this question because I feel like we'll have a lot to say about it.
Yeah,
Um, what is there out there for research about exercise? Because it's got to be, I mean, in my opinion, of something that is researched, something there's so many good things. Like when you usually search these things in like in healthcare, taking care of yourself, you always have, well, too much of this or whatever. But I feel like the overall consensus about exercise for a long time has been good. A lot of good things.
for sure. Yeah, and it goes right into, how many times do you hear, like, if you could take exercise and put it into a pill, like, and be the most popular drug there is, but I always think like the top down effects that it has on the system as a whole are so positive, with just getting the blood flowing and moving increases your mood. If you increase your mood, you make better decisions. If you make better decisions, your body responds more appropriately, right? Like if your body's working more efficiently, then you're going to be able to do more and accomplish more and be present for more and be there for other people more, right? And like, are we reaching by saying movement does all those things? Not really. And that's the other cool part, right? And the benefit of that is then a lot of times, whether it's hit high intensity gym, it's a CrossFit gym, it's a Globo gym, you have some buddies that you work out with, like whatever it is, a running club, you also begin to get this sense of community, right? And you talk about research and kind of being more human in a sense of like, we're healthy, we take care of ourselves, we're fit, we can do anything. We need community, we need family, you know um love, and like all of those things that make us human are kind of wrapped up in this exercise model, and I'd say that's the biggest thing. Like as far as the research goes, I'd say as a whole, the research says we don't move enough and we need to move more, but no one's helping move the needle on that, unfortunately. Like point blank, like we're only getting more unhealthy as a whole. Things only cost more as a whole. um, no one's laying out the groundwork to move it the other way and actually make a huge dent in moving it the other way. So the research will keep saying what the research says, but if you want to be a part of something that makes you more human and provides connection and accountability and like some self-love and motivation to reach something new, like that's what you need to be a part of, and you're gonna have to search for it and you're gonna have to work for it.
I I think when us as a society are opening up more diabetes and obesity clinics than we are having available healthy food in the grocery store and fitness facilities for our society, I think that's an indicator on where things have been heading. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
necessarily we all have to look at that's where it's headed, because in healthcare, like, we kind of reap the effects of years prior and then we try to make a change going forward, but those detrimental things will keep happening and then we have to try to get ahead of that again. So I don't necessarily think that we're headed in such a I'm being really optimistic, but I don't think we're still headed at that trajectory.
Mhm.
I think we have a lot of work to do, but it starts with very small things like this, just us talking, us living the lifestyle that we're actually talking about, saying
Mhm.
doing what we're saying. Um, and then I think that it goes back to our families, and then it kind of just expands from there. And slowly it trickles to our community based off of the clientele that we work with, the clientele that you work with.
Mhm.
Just using our words, our actions might help one person, and that's where it starts.
For sure. 100%. And that's the biggest thing that we're trying to do is just lay out this foundation and a path and education to a healthy lifestyle. And again, doing that one person, one family, one community at a time is our mission. But the one person is us too, right? Like kind of lead from the front, you
Yeah.
know, we can stop it in its tracks. It's just going to take a whole lot of people to stop that in its tracks and turn it around. And you know, there's no reason to not be optimistic because the alternative is not very positive.
Yeah.
So, I think we'll continue to make some traction and keep growing that. But the biggest thing is reach out. You
Mhm.
hear this stuff, you hear people talk about this. Like it takes one message, in to further the conversation. It takes, one send button of, hey, you think you can help me with this? And the amount of people that we're doing that with is so cool because it puts the work back on them, but they don't have to figure it out on their own, right? And that's where I think, talking about nutrition last month and hopping on about training, and we'll start to see them all tie together pretty closely, all while doing the work too.
Yeah. Man, you touched on everything.
Cool.
With it.
Yeah, it feels good. Well, we're getting into September here soon, and then you guys hit it hard with the training, and then we'll host the Hillers for the IMT Des Moines half.
I'm talking about.
Awesome. Well, we'll hop on here in a few weeks and get another one out to you guys. But in the meantime, like, subscribe, send us a message, let us know what we can help you with, and let us know what we can get on here and talk about that you guys are interested in.
Yeah,
So,
I know where your guys' heads are at. So we have ideas of things that we want to talk about, but if you guys send us questions and you know, we can answer right on here your questions directly, and then it might spark somebody else to um, give us some of their thoughts too.
awesome. All right. Night.